If you've ever wondered what the UK motoring world would think of a hotted up F6 Typhoon, stop wondering, because pretty soon we're going to find out. Nizpro Turbocharging are just about to export the first F6 to the UK. We recently stopped by Nizpro to chat with the proprietor and long-time Aussie turbo specialist Simon Gishas to find out what it takes to make them more potent and more reliable. Let's start at the beginning though.
Nizpro started in the early 90s, and we were primarily started doing Nissan vehicles, which is why the name is relevant. Over the last few years, from about 02, the BA Falcon Turbo came on scene, and we started making a range of kits for those and the Ford Territory Turbo.
To get the best possible end result, Nizpro actually start by removing the turbo in order to improve on the base engine first.
Most of the development we do is with naturally aspirated first. It's the only true way of getting a good sense of what the engine's doing, because the turbocharger masks so much of the high performance part. You know, half a pound of boost here or there will make 20 or 30 horsepower.
Next, they set about developing the most powerful XR6 turbo engine in the country.
So we started with an XR6 turbo. We built a custom steel billet, fully counterweighted crankshaft for it. We needed new oil pump gears, as they were starting to show signs of failure on the rev limiter and high RPM. It obviously had good conrods and forged pistons and bigger camshafts, and you know, all the standard hardware that we used to run in GTR engines, basically transformed and resized to suit a 4-litre BA engine.
The project took around 6 months. It was only done as a PR exercise, but this engine made a phenomenal amount of power and created a huge amount of interest.
The peak number on that engine was 1,223 horsepower. It made 550 newton metres of torque at 2,200 RPM, so it was unbelievably drivable. We ran it to a peak RPM of 7,500 and a peak boost of 26 PSI.
With the success of that development, people started putting their hands up and wanted to order one for themselves.
The sister engine to the original dyno engine ended up in Brian Lord's XR6 Turbo. I had one drive of that vehicle and decided I didn't really need that kind of hump. It would physically turn the tyres aggressively in 50 at 220 kilometres an hour.
We featured Brian's car on the cover of issue 8. Much of the development was actually pulling the mid-range torque out of it to make it less of a monster to drive.
But that car's been reasonably successful. It's done lots of good kilometres. It is very drivable. It has really good mid-range torque.
Nizpro used the knowledge gained during the first few years of development to produce their own tyre-frying version of the F6.
The Typhoon you see here is the first of 2 prototypes we've built. They will be leaving for the UK over the next month or so. We're waiting for ADR approval at this point for emissions compliance.
Don't think that full emissions compliance means a major limit on power though.
The cars you see are 400 rear wheel kilowatts. They range with one of our stage 3 engines. We've upgraded the brakes to AP racing brakes, new coil-over adjustable shocks and springs, our new range of high-performance rear drive shafts and CV joints, oil coolers for the engine, the gearbox and the diff, larger radiators, and quite a weapon.
The concept actually came from another organisation who wanted something different in the UK to compete against the best sports luxury sedans that Europe can offer.
We're actually building the Typhoons for a separate company who are going to export them to the UK. They're looking at numbers of possibly 50 per year. We hope to get them on some of the fairly large automotive shows over there. They're going to be basically the price of the very low-spec M5 type car, BMW. We certainly believe in sheer performance they will be considerably faster over the quarter mile and lap times, plus the fact that they're very unique over in England compared to what we see here. We think they'll probably be a very big hit.
Because they are to compete directly with cars like the M5, the level of comfort and luxury in the Typhoon was raised appropriately.
We've retrimmed the interior with Connolly leather, so they're quite a nice car while still being very potent. The project started halfway through last year when we actually had a call from an English guy who wanted us to build one of these types of cars. In the end, that fell through, but we had another particular gentleman here at the time that was sort of had his ear to the ground and heard what we were envisaging on doing. So he came on board, and he's going to be the car importer now to the UK, and has basically, you know, paid for the project to go ahead. That's really where it started from. The brief to me from him was we needed something that you could smash with a hammer and you couldn't break it. The UK's a long way for warranty, so we had to make them absolutely bulletproof.
In order to achieve this level of reliability in the F6 and the more powerful customer cars, Nizpro had to find stronger clutches, develop their own chrome moly CV joints, as well as fit gearbox and diff coolers to keep the temperatures under control.
They come to us as a brand new vehicle from Ford. We purchased them brand new. This one here in front, you see, has got 30 Ks on it from pre-delivery, unregistered. At that point, we strip the car's engines out, gearbox, diff, suspension, brakes, interior. The interior is sent out to a local place in Moorabbin in Melbourne. They re-trim the interior. It normally takes around about 2 weeks. The engine build on turnaround, we've now got changeovers, but typically speaking, you look at around about 4 weeks to complete an engine. The engines have forged pistons, our own design of conrod, billet oil pump gears. We modified the cylinder chamber considerably. Turbocharger, we have a number of ranges, and as I said, this is the 400 kilowatt version, which still fundamentally runs the standard turbocharger with a few modifications to the turbine side of the turbocharger. By the time we put the suspension, the brakes and the oil coolers in, it's around about a 12-week project to get the car in and out. Of course, we'll refine that considerably by the time we're doing production runs of 4 or 5 at a time, and we hope to get that down to probably about 4 to 5 weeks.
With all this re-engineering, it makes you wonder why they didn't start with the cheaper XR6 turbo.
One of the reasons we used the F6 instead of the standard XR6 turbo was really it got down to the body kit. We changed so many of the components, we could have almost started with a standard XR6. The interior trim and so forth is obviously uprated on the F6 compared to a standard XR6 with dual climate control. So although they're considerably dearer to buy standard, the benefits still outweigh the extra money that we needed to spend on an XR6 turbo.
The Monaro and VXR8 have shown that the UK love a big Aussie muscle car, given the tarmac shredding potential of these Nizpro developed Typhoons. And Simon tells us that they've left room for tuners to make even more power. We can only imagine that these FPV-based silver bullets will just blow them away.